I publish articles twice a week on Substack. And if you didn't get a chance to look at my article today, I want to take a few minutes to go over the key points. So I think this is information that's really important. It's been 11 months since the shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. But we don't have an after-action report or official timeline of what happened that day. And this information is increasingly important in light of everything that's come out since the shooting in Uvalde and the DOJ report. Because 10 minutes passed between the first 911 call and officers entering the school in Nashville. That's 6 minutes longer than it took for officers to get inside the building in Uvalde. And I submitted an information request to the Nashville Police Department back in April of 2023, asking for details about the timeline and which officers were on the scene and when. That information request has been ignored. And recently, this type of information became even more important because there was a shooting on campus at UNLV. And in the immediate aftermath, the police chief gave a press conference, and he said our officers ran inside without hesitation and got the shooter. But when body camera footage was released, in reality, officers ran right by the shooter. They actually ushered him out of the building, and the shooting was only stopped when the assailant charged directly at police officers. In fact, what the chief said had not happened. And so the morning after the Covenant School, the Nashville police chief went on Good Morning America, and he said that our officers didn't hesitate at all, that they ran right in. So what has been released is a really incomplete timeline of what happened. We know that at 10:13, there was the first 911 call for the shooting at the school. At 10:23, 10 minutes later, the first officer unlocks the door and enters the building. And at 10:27, 4 minutes later, then the shooter's killed. And from the body camera footage, which is altered, it's not a complete footage, it's just edited clips, you can see that as the first officer who's running up, who's going to unlock the door, he passes by 3 different police cars that are already parked outside. And in the distance, you can see a 4th and 5th police car that are here by this door to the school. And at that point, the officer gets keys and unlocks the door. So when the door was locked, nobody else was entering. He's the first one to go in. So the questions I have for the Nashville Police Department is, what's the official timeline of which officers arrived on scene and when? There are those police cars sitting outside of the door as this officer runs up. Were those patrol officers waiting outside of the school for this tactically trained officer to get there? And if officers were not at the Covenant School in the first 2 or 3 minutes, if there were no patrol officers there, why were they delayed responding? This school is only 3 miles from downtown and Music Row, where there would be dozens of officers working that day. What's also strange about the body camera footage that was released by the Nashville Police Department is that it has been cropped. So in your standard body camera footage, there's information like the police officer's ID number, the timestamp, the incident information. In the video that was released by the Nashville Police Department, the footage is cropped, so it removes this identifying information, and more importantly, it removes the timestamps. But from what we can see in the timeline compared to the length of the footage, is there was 240 seconds between the officer entering and the shooter being killed. There's only 140 seconds of footage. What's missing in that other minute and a half? What's being shown in that footage that the department decided not to release? Because this is abnormal. After the shooting at the Outlet Mall in Allen, Texas, the police department released this entire 5-minute clip of unedited, uncropped footage that shows what happened. So the questions that we're left with from this is how many officers were at the school before the door was unlocked? How long had they been there? Why was this footage cropped and edited rather than showing all of the information? What was going on in those other 100 seconds? And in light of the Frontline documentary and the footage that's been leaked from Uvalde, did that 100 seconds show things like officers waiting outside of the school or officers standing in the hallway? And we're left with a broader problem here. Last week, The Atlantic published a cover story that revisits the school resource officer in Parkland, Florida. And through interviews with him and interviews with other officers, it paints the picture that your standard school resource officer or patrol officer is really not trained and equipped and prepared for a solo response to a school shooting. For that person to be the only one who goes in and stops the shooter. So what's really important to know about this information from Nashville is Nashville another example where the patrol officers, who were the first ones to arrive on the scene, decided to wait outside until somebody with more experience got there and began directing their actions. And if that was the case, that's information we need to know, because that's pointing to a national trend and something that needs to be factored into the emergency planning and training for the next school shooting.